Hello, my fellow art nerds, and welcome back to another Not Quite Speed Paint. Today, I'll be drawing one of the pages from my webcomic, Say Hello, Greyson. Say Hello, Greyson is a webcomic that I've been creating for around a year now. It's the classic story of kid moves to a new town, but with a bit of a demonic twist. It started off as just a short series for October 2019, but then people seemed to enjoy it, so I continued to create it afterwards as well. Now, I upload weekly to Instagram, Mondays at 12 p.m., give or take a few minutes, because I don't schedule anything. But for this channel, I figured I'd take you through my process of how I'd create a page. Without further ado, let's get arting. I'd actually started recording for a different page before this one, but the footage ended up getting corrupted. Blessing in disguise though, because I had a much tougher time figuring out the sketch for this page. Why is that a blessing? Because now I have more to talk about. When I come up with panels, I have a few things I have to think about in terms of the composition. When it comes to regular illustrations, it's a different thought process because you don't have to worry about speech bubbles most of the time. With comic panels, I have to come up with a composition that fits the speech bubbles as well as have the correct things highlighted. Sometimes you even have the speech bubbles lead your eyes around the panel or panels that allows the reader to see the illustration in a certain way. For instance, because I am creating an American comic, not a manga, you read from left to right. However, sometimes illustrators want you to follow the speech bubbles a certain way so that your eyes go around the illustrated panel a certain way. Your main instinct is to read from left to right, but if you kind of have like maybe a Z pattern around your speech bubbles, or maybe you have like a bit of a zigzag, it forces the reader to kind of go around the whole panel rather than go in a straight line. My process for coming up with what goes in each panel surrounds me figuring out what I want in each panel, or what I want readers to see is happening, what should be the main center of focus, and the mood for the panel itself. Sometimes I have more serious panels where I put a little bit more thought into it, and then there are other panels that I call like my quote-unquote lazy panels, where like there isn't too much happening, so I just draw something that's kind of cute. Low effort, put it in there, we're all good. However, for this page in particular, I had some difficulty coming up with the first panel, because my initial idea for that panel's composition had a much wider composition than the panel allowed. This happens sometimes, and then I have to do revisions on the spot. But for this, I wanted to have the teacher looking directly at Greyson now, while earlier she was only looking at him sideways. I wanted Mo and Courtney to be looking back at the teacher as she spoke, because in the page previous, they both turned to Greyson as he spoke. And of course, I wanted Greyson himself in this shot. This took some rethinking on the spot, and eventually I had an over-the-shoulder shot that I was more satisfied with. I'm not 100% cool with it, just because I'm very stubborn with my compositions, and I did want that original one more, but the panels just wouldn't allow for it, and then I had to live with that, which is fine. But the other panels were no issue. An insert shot of the teacher's crossed arms, and then an easier panel of just Grey talking. Another one of my quote-unquote lazy panels I couldn't be bothered with, after the first panel just annoyed me way too much. For this scene, not only was coming up with panels tricky, but also coming up with a script. So not just this page, it's the whole scene that's happening. For me, it's rare that I actually write out the script beforehand. Usually I have an idea of what I want and then just write the script on the spot. Like, I have ideas of what pages I want, I have ideas of what scenes I want, I know what's gonna happen, but I never really have anything specific written. It's more like, I go, oh, this is gonna happen this time, and this is gonna happen at this time, and then I just kind of write it properly on the spot, and I don't really have anything super specific written. However, this next set of pages has Greyson in a debate with his teacher about her teaching methods for 5th grade language, which I have not had for almost a decade. So this means I had to write it as if they're both intelligent. Unfortunately, I am not, so I had to come up with a script beforehand as well. Speaking of the script writing for this comic, one thing that people may not realize is needed when writing and illustrating for comics is research. Tons and tons of research. This comic takes place in rural Ontario, and the majority of the main characters are in the 5th grade, attending a Catholic K-12 school. The only things in that list that I've actually experienced myself are 5th grade, and that I too live in Ontario. However, I don't live in a rural area, and I went to public primary and secondary schools, not a K-12. Knowing that the curriculum for certain things is different from the Catholic school board to the public school board, I had to do my research. Thankfully, my close childhood friends went to a K-12 Catholic school, so I can ask them questions, and there's whole packages of Ontario elementary school curriculums uploaded for free online. So, for all the school scenes or scenes that involve school work, I've had to read those curriculums and figure out what lessons are taught in the 5th grade. So sometimes I'd recruit my friends Sometimes I'd recruit my friends, I'd go, hey guys, listen. I have to figure out what do kids learn in social studies in 5th grade, and they're like, okay, let's go look for stuff. So there's a scene in particular before this where Greyson is doing his homework, and there's like maybe 2 panels that actually show his homework, and I was like, okay, no, I need to make sure that what he's learning is accurate to the curriculum. So I would look through the whole panel, or I'd look through the whole package, and I'd go, okay, they learn about this, and then not only would I have to go through that package, but I'd also have to look for actual schoolwork that they do in 5th grade on top of that, especially for social studies, because they're a little bit less specific in terms of that. So then my friends and I, we all kind of went out and we talked about it, figured out what his homework should be, and then those 2 panels were complete. And that's all that work. It was maybe 5 hours, all that work for 2 whole panels. And that's like why comic art and writing at the same time is a lot harder than you might think. So if you find a comic artist who is, putting out their work for free, who's doing everything just for your own enjoyment, you don't have to pay for anything, please don't be demanding to that artist. They're doing their best. They're probably really tired. It's hard. It's not an easy form of art. It's a lot harder than you think it is, especially if they're doing it all on their own. So please respect your artist. They're doing this for you, and they're doing it for their own enjoyment. So, just be mindful of what you say before you say it. Writing aside, illustrating this comic has me heavy in my style element. Thick black lines with hints of geometry, cell shading, etc. However, I do have to be wise about how I line for panels with more perspective. While line thickness can be attributed to areas with shadow, they can also be used to exaggerate perspective. Things that are in the forefront can have darker lines, while things farther away have thinner lines. I like to exaggerate this a lot. Sometimes I even blur the object in the forefront, either to really draw attention to what's farther back, or sometimes I don't like what I've drawn, so adding a blur helps make that matter not as much. For the things in the background, sometimes I line them and sometimes I don't. However, if I do line them, I tend to color those lines in to take away attention from them. All characters and corresponding objects that are meant to grab your attention are lined in black. A lot of people will say not to line in black. It's nice when you don't line in black, but personally for me, I use a lot of really bright, vivid colors, depending on the panels, of course. And a lot of them are very dark, so if I line with anything lighter than black, then it'll end up kind of blended together. It doesn't look that great. But by lining with color for things in the background, they tend to blend back there a lot easier. Of course, you could also use thickness to draw attention away, but I reserve that for perspective generally. Another thing about illustrating comics is being smart with the character designs and style. For reference, I release 4 pages every week on Mondays at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. They're all kind of grouped in on the same day. Sometimes people will space them out. So if I were maybe a different comic artist, I may have one on Monday, one on Wednesday, one on Friday, and then re-roll through that. But I clump all 4 of them on the same days. Just makes my life easier. Smart artists would have a queue of pages so they don't have to draw every week. I don't have the luxury of a queue because I am kind of lazy. So I draw all of my pages during the week before their release. Especially when you have to draw an individual over and over, less is more when it comes to the design. Less is more. So far, my most complex to draw characters are Daisy and Gulrathel, but everyone else has a very simple design. They're not very difficult to draw. Generally, they fall very easily into my style, nothing too crazy. That's the main difference between straight illustration and comic art, and game art. With illustration, you draw the individual once, and you don't have to worry about it much afterwards. With game art, you illustrate the concept art, and then you make one model, and you use that model over and over, so you don't have to keep on making them over and over again. In that case, while incorporating less is more isn't a bad thing, you can also add a lot more detail and not have to worry about it as much as if you were to incorporate them into a comic. And suddenly that intensely intricate armor or crazy ball gown isn't as fun to draw when you have to draw it for 20 pages. Originally, I had Mo as this very complex looking character. He had a lot of piercings, different ethnicity entirely, and that's what I started off with. And then I kind of dialed it back. I didn't like the initial one anyway, but I kind of dialed it back, and I was like, this is a lot easier. I can do this for hundreds of pages. So, you have to be wise with how you design these characters, because if you make them too complicated, you're going to end up hurting yourself more than you're helping. helping. But you know, if you have complex characters and you'd rather draw those complexities over and over, then absolutely go for it. But you are going to be sacrificing time, and then you're also going to be sacrificing your own hand. So just be wise, know what your balance should be, know what you want to watch out for. There's always time to change and improve regardless throughout your whole comic. And with that, that's this page complete. Page 118 to be exact. Illustrating for this comic is always fun, though I do have my gripes about it sometimes. While this definitely isn't my favorite page that I've illustrated, I'm generally satisfied with it. And I've learned over the years that sometimes good enough is better than perfect. But if you liked what you saw, make sure to leave a like on this video, comment down below to tell me what you'd like to see me draw next, and hit subscribe so that you never miss an upload. And hey, we art nerds gotta stick together, so join our little art community with the links down below. With that said, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye!